Hi, I'm Leanne, and I'm going to be talking about long-form content and writing RMAs for MPULL. Okay, so long-form content. What is a rich media asset? Long-form content at MPULL most often takes the form of rich media assets, and they are longer than blogs, usually about 1,500 words to 3,500 words, and they are downloadable PDF documents. So they're usually ebooks, guides, handbooks, trend reports, things like that. The point of doing a rich media asset in the inbound methodology is for conversion purposes. So we often refer to them as conversion assets. So how this works is you'll have an anonymous web user reading your blog, and the blog will prompt them to download a rich media asset. And in order to do that, they need to supply their contact details. So that converts them from an anonymous web user into a known lead. And then after they've read the asset, there's another prompt to convert onto the next phase of the buyer journey. Okay, so first things first, you always start with a brief. Your strategist and your editor should create a really nice, meaty brief for you. If your brief is weak, your asset will be weak. So a good brief outlines the persona you're targeting with the asset, the stage of the funnel that the asset belongs in. It can be top, middle, or bottom of funnel. The campaign that the asset fits into. They should give you some guidance on what chapters you should have, points that you need to cover. They'll suggest a title. They'll talk about the tone it should be written in. If there's a product tie-in, they should mention that. And then very importantly, a call to action. So every piece of content you create needs to function as part of a digital strategy. Otherwise, it's pointless, no matter how wonderfully you write the asset. So if your brief is unclear or weak or flimsy, it's really important to sit down with your strategist, ask all the questions you have, and get as much detail from them as you can, because that's going to help you create an asset that really does its job. So who are you talking to? This is the persona that the asset is aimed at. And it's really important that you read through the persona document before you start writing and really familiarize yourself with the persona. So a good asset answers a question a persona has, solves a problem that they have, and it uses the right tone for that persona. So while you're writing, keep the persona's specific challenges, problems, and interests in mind, and make sure that you don't go too much off topic. Otherwise, they're going to lose interest. So you want the ideal client to read your asset and think, wow, it's like this was written especially for me. So a good example of how important the persona is if you have a client who sells women's underwear and lingerie, you could have two very different personas. One could be Fit Fiona and another could be Husband Henry. So Fit Fiona is a girl in her 20s. She's into sport, keeping fit and active, and health, and she's into fashion. Husband Henry is a guy in his 40s or maybe late 30s or 50s. He's happily married, and when he buys lingerie from this provider, he's most likely buying it as an anniversary gift for his wife or a Valentine's Day gift. When Fit Fiona buys it, she's buying it for herself. So the kind of content you create for these two personas will be drastically different. For Fit Fiona, you might talk about how to fit a sports bra correctly, what are the best fabrics for sexy lingerie, or what's in fashion in the summer range, that kind of thing. And for Husband Henry, you'll talk about the do's and don'ts of buying lingerie, what's the perfect wedding anniversary gift, So you can see how different the content you create will be for each persona, and also the tone will be different. You'll speak to a 40 or 50-year-old man who's a businessman and, you know, looking for a nice gift for his wife in a different tone than you would talk to a 20-year-old girl who's into yoga and aerobics. Okay, the title. So the title is really important, and a lot of writers fluff over the title and go with the most obvious one and don't spend enough time crafting a title that really communicates the value of the asset and grabs the reader and makes them want to download it. So remember that your title is largely what the reader is going to base the decision to download it or not on. So it really has to hit home and address a pain point or a challenge. But that said, don't ever overpromise in your title, because once the person downloads your asset and finds out that it's not at all what the title promises, they're going to be very disappointed, and that's going to create a very negative brand association, and you never want that. Okay, so a few notes on format. Medium length asset is about 1,500 words long, and a long asset is about 3,500 words long. So give and take a little bit. You should always break the assets up into chapters, makes it easier to read, and use subheadings within those chapters to break up the text. So even though we call these RMAs long form content, they shouldn't be too text heavy. They should still be concise and use as many diagrams, images, infographics. Nobody wants to download a heavy tome of text and just wade through it. That's not what we're going for here. And then, if appropriate, it's good to include an about the author section, a contents page, an introduction, a conclusion, and very importantly, a call to action. So what is the call to action all about? Your asset must be conversion driven. That's the whole point of doing these sorts of pieces of content, and it's the whole point of doing marketing, is to convert anonymous strangers into leads and convert those leads into happy paying customers. So the best RMAs drive conversion in two ways, or in two stages. So you have an anonymous person on your website, they decide to download your asset, they give you their contact details in order to do so, and they become a known lead. Now you have the opportunity to nurture this lead, talk to them, educate them, guide them down the buyer journey, and you use your asset to delight them and educate them, and at the end of your asset, there should be a call to action that prompts the reader to convert to the next phase of the funnel. So if it's a top of funnel asset, at the end you want to have a call to action prompting the reader to convert into the middle of the funnel. If you have a middle of funnel asset, you want to have a call to action prompting them to convert to the bottom of the funnel. And so it's getting more and more product specific as you go and narrowing it down. And if you have a bottom of funnel asset, your call to action is usually going to be something like buy this product, make a booking, request a quote. Supporting blogs. Every asset needs to be promoted on your blog and on your website. So the way that you do that is by writing supporting blogs. So while you're writing your asset, you need to be constantly thinking of blog ideas. Because it's just easier that way when you have a little library of blogs on hand when you start promoting the asset. So for example, if you had a top of funnel asset called the Bridesmaid's Handbook, and this is aimed at a young woman who is going to be a bridesmaid at her best friend's wedding. So blogs that you could write to promote that asset could be things like how to handle the pressures of being a bridesmaid, bridesmaids' duties on the day of the wedding, wedding planning horror stories, 10 ways to keep the bride calm on her wedding day, when your best friend becomes bridezilla, how to deal. So this kind of client could be, wedding venues or decor or a DJ or flowers, a florist, anything to do with the wedding planning and events industry. They could potentially use a campaign like this if one of their personas was a wedding planner or bridesmaid or bride. And that's it. If you have any comments or suggestions on how we can improve this training, please fill them in the form below. And please also fill in the form to get an example of an MPULL ebook, so that you can see everything I've just explained to you now in action in an ebook. Thanks for listening, and I hope that was helpful.